Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Man, I tell you what, one of the hardest reviews you can do is a review on a knife that is just okay. And that's really what I'm going to be doing now, is a review on a knife that is okay, I guess. That's about as far as I can go with it. There's a few minor things wrong with it, but nothing dramatically wrong with it. And there's nothing that really just inspires me to say something good about the knife, yet it's not so awful that it's easy to rag on the knife, if you know what I mean. And it's this one here, a Boker Stockman that I recently picked up. And I was expecting more from the knife than what I got. I guess that's really what it comes down to. I have waited probably 3 or 4 weeks to even talk about it because, first I tried to fix it up a little bit. Nothing really helped. And then every time I look at it, it's just kind of, it doesn't inspire me to say anything good about the knife. Like I said, it's not an awful knife, and many people who probably have it have said great things about it, and they're probably much happier with the knife than I am. But for me, it just missed the mark in several areas. And the first one I'm going to say that it misses the mark in is this is supposed to be tortoise shell, and I don't know, it just, as tortoiseshell goes, it just doesn't look as good as the tortoiseshell I've seen on less expensive knives like, Rough Rider. I like this tortoiseshell better. I like the way it looks and the way you don't see all those strings running through it and you see the big glop here. I don't know. It just, it doesn't look as good to me. Now, obviously, other people are going to say, no, that's fantastic. It's got great color to it. And I guess the clear amber is nice, but I just don't like the way the darker color is streaked into there. Also, when you rub your hand along the spine of the knife to see how smooth it is and everything, I can feel like where they were, I don't know, the brass liners, you can feel some roughness to them, so it's like they needed to be polished more. I do that to the Rough Rider, and there's a gap there, you can see the gap, but I tell you what, at least this is smooth, and this is a $12 knife, and same with this one, no gap here, and also as smooth as can be in this little sow belly. But this one, yeah, there's no gap, but you can feel roughness in the brass liners and possibly even in the back springs. And also, notice how sharp the angle is on the tortoiseshell handles. It's like you couldn't have rounded that out just a little bit, but no, they didn't. And the shield is also sunk in there. Now, I know that's something that Boker seems to do all the time. Their shields always seem to be a little bit recessed, so the hole is deeper than the shield. It's the same on this knife. This one's a little closer to flush. This one is definitely sunk in there. The pins on this are up. This also was a knife, a little bit of a disappointment. I mentioned how problematic it was because of how poorly the blade opens. The talk on this knife is just horrendous. Matter of fact, the only thing on here that had any real snap was the corkscrew. The front blades are just awful. And yes, I flushed it out and everything else. It's just awful. I kept it because I collect bartender knives, and it's a bartender knife, and I just wanted to keep it simply because of that, but there's definitely better ones out there. And this one here, this is one of my favorite knives, and this is also by Boker out of Germany, and you can see it right there on the thing. It says Boker, Solid in Germany, and everything else. And this knife has really great action on it. You know, this little equal end pen knife. And that's what I was expecting for my Boker knives. This is a much older one. This one's probably about, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years old, maybe a little more than that. I don't know. I think it's from around the 90s. It could have been older than that. But this one has really great action on it. This one, which is a relatively new knife within the last 5 or so years, the action on it is awful. And then I got this one, and it's like, well, this is Boker, Germany also. It says so on the shield, right? Boker, Germany. It says so on the box. Boker, manufacturer, Germany. You know, it doesn't say Solid in Germany on the handle or on the tang stamp, so I don't know where it came from. But the first thing you notice is the action. There is so much grinding, it's ridiculous. Maybe this is the Boker knives that are coming out of the factory. That's bad. We'll do that. Maybe it's coming out of that factory in East Germany or something like that. I know, what is it, the Adler factory? Maybe they're the ones that are making these knives. I don't know. What I do know is the quality is nothing like this knife, and it's kind of very much a disappointing knife. The action is so sloppy. Yes, the blades are tight. There's no wobble or anything, but you should not have to push the blade all the way around, and opening it is problematic at best. This is after cleaning it up, flushing it, oiling it again, and everything else. And you got, it isn't that it's a hard pull. It is a little bit hard, probably around a 7 or 8. But the fact that that's not the way a knife blade should have to open. And the same thing with the main blade. This is what you expect when you open a knife blade. This is an old $12 Rough Rider. You know, this is another Rough Rider. This is one with half stops, but you can see there's no pivot grind going on at all. The blades are nice and snug. And you have, this one here is a little problematic. You can see that it's not the easiest to get to the match striker pull there, but it's still easier to get to that match striker pull than it is to this pull on this knife. This is for the sheep foot, which is a blade I'm going to use more than the spade blade. And it's buried underneath there. And because you've got a pull on the blade that's about an 8 or a 9 because of all the pivot grind, it's like, even if the tortoiseshell handles looked better, I probably would not be carrying this knife ever, simply because I've got better knives, better action on other knives than this knife. And one of the things that stops a person from using a knife is if it's like, oh, well, I have a hard time getting to that sheep foot blade. It's like, why am I going to carry that knife when it's like, oh, I can get to this sheep foot blade and it's opened right away and I can use it. And if that's a blade that you want to use a lot, then, you know, what are you going to go with? So even though it's got a little more luster in that handle, that's not enough. Blades should not move that slowly, and that's, I don't know, it's just way too much grind going on. It's not getting any better. I've been trying to get this thing to open easier for well over 2 weeks, and this is it. That's not, look at that. Really? 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 Oh, there we go. Right there. That's where it starts at. Yep. Right there. So anywhere from here all the way to here, you can stop the blade. Or you have to pull the blade around before it actually snap. And that's not the way I want my knife blades to open. It's just not smooth. And I don't know why. Uh, Other than it's just pivot grind. The pivots are too tight. I don't know if they did that so there wouldn't be any blade wobble. But when you combine that with the fact that they buried the sheepfoot blade, it becomes really problematic. Yeah. On the bright side, you don't have much blade rub going on. But I tell you what, I'd rather have a little blade rub and have a sheepfoot blade that I can easily get to than what I'm having with this knife. And I guess that's what it comes down to. And that's why I was saying there is not anything dramatically wrong with it, but it's all the little things that are going on with this knife that makes me think that this is definitely destined for a giveaway rather than actually to keep in the collection. And that's a shame because this is a $40 knife or thereabouts, and it looks really nice. Not my favorite. The tortoiseshell pattern could have been better, but I do like the shade of the amber that they're using there. That does look nice. But because of how poor the blades, the walk and talk on the knife is, I guess that's what it comes down to. How poor the walk and talk is on the knife, it means it's a knife I'm never going to carry. And if you notice, can you see some of that? You can see some blotching on the back here, and I think that's where the scale was, or where the cover was glued to the brass liner. You can actually see the glue blobs through the amber on where the amber colored celluloid is glued to the brass liners. And I guess this is where it comes down to when Pete said, Pete from Jersey Knife Guy said, always make sure it has Boker Soligen Germany on the tank stamp. And I think that's what he's really talking about, because I don't think this knife was made in Soligen Germany. It's probably made in Germany, but not in Soligen Germany. I think it's made in the Adler factory. I could be wrong. Maybe someone else can correct me on that part. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a knife that I will probably not keep for my tortoiseshell collection, because I've got better Stockmans already as far as I'm concerned, and better Stockmans that were a lower price than what I paid for the Boker. And that's where the real indifference, I guess, or where the feeling of I've been had comes from or something. It's not that the knife is awful. It's just that it's not as good as what I was expecting. I guess that's the way to put it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, like I said, this is one of the hardest things to do, is to try and review a knife that it's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily, it's not the greatest knife you've ever had. It's just okay. And when you look at the price that you paid for it, and you realize that there's other knives out there that are at that price or even lower that have better action and similar quality steel and everything, it's not enough to say, well, it was made in Germany. That doesn't cut it. And I guess that's what the problem is with this knife, is it's just okay. It's definitely not something to write home about. And so kind of hard to do a review on it where you're saying it's an awful knife and you can point out all the awful stuff about it, or where you can say, oh, this is a great knife and this is why it's a great knife. This knife is just okay. Yeah, and if it's something that you want to pay $40 for, go for it. but you can get other knives that are just okay for half the price. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.